Hello. Can you hear me, Rachel?
Can you hear me now? Yay!
Hi, Rachel.
All right, finally. Hey, sorry guys, I'm running a little bit late today. Thanks for joining me.
Sure.
All right, let me make sure we have everybody in here real quick. Okay, well, welcome tonight. I'm so glad that you guys are joining me, and we're going to get going here. We'll probably take a couple little breaks here just to make sure that I have people coming in. I'm still trying to play around with Zoom, trying to figure out all the buttons, and for some reason it is set up to where I have to admit people into the room. And I've tried to play with this a million times, and I'm still not figuring it out. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone for now while we get things going. And then as we have questions, you can raise your hand if you know how to do that. Let's see, you go. Yeah, now I'm not remembering either. I think there's a way that you can raise your hand so that if you have a question, I'll be able to see that on the list. Otherwise, if you can unmute yourself, go ahead and do that and ask your question if you have one. So, okay, I think we're good to go now. So let me switch cameras, zoom that in. There we go. Okay. Did all of you, were you able to join me on last night's Zoom call or Facebook Live? Yeah, no? Okay. So we kind of went through some of the kits. Let me grab that real quick. So if you got one of these lovely kits, we're going to go through this together, and let me just show you what's all in here. All right. So you have several different papers. You have these cute little triangle pieces and some diamond shapes. And some hexagons. Then you have 4 different fabrics that are 1/8 of a yard. So pick out which one you want to use tonight. We're going to be working on making the star, which we'll be using these diamond shapes for those. And I'm not sure if my sound is coming through the computer or the microphone. So let me double check that here real quick. Zoom says microphone for some reason, but It's not hooked up to the computer. So much technical stuff with this world here. Okay, can you still hear me? Okay, good. All right. Then you have some glue. This is Elmer's glue. It's washable. Even though it is a purple color, it's not going to stain your fabric, and you'll be able to wash this out of your quilt if you're going to make a full-size quilt. But with this class, we're just making ornaments, which is a great way to practice how to do this technique. Then you have some ribbon in your kit, which we can use to make little the little hanging thing on your ornament, or you could put some embellishments like a bow or something like that on your ornament. And then you have 2 different needles that I included in the package. So I like to use this milliner's needle. It's I believe a 10 or 11. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more to that. So it's a really long, thin, straw-like needle. It has a very, very tiny eye to it. And then I also included an embroidery needle, which has a larger eye to it. So if you're brand new to English paper piecing, that might be the needle you want to start with just to get the practice going. The milliner's needle is great because it makes teeny tiny little stitches, but it's a lot harder to thread. So speaking of thread, you have 2 different threads in here. We have this polyester thread that is what most English paper piecers recommend that you use. But this one I found on Amazon and I thought it was something different, but it's really, really thick. And it was really hard to thread the needle with, even with the little needle threader that came in your kit as well. So if you want to try the polyester thread, I would probably use the embroidery needle. When I tried to thread it with the milliner's needle, it would not even go through, even with this thing. It's so thick. But the good thing about polyester thread is it doesn't shred very easily. So when you're doing your stitching, you're going to be putting the needle right next to these papers, and that can shred your thread. But I love Aurifel thread, and that's what I use the most of, is this Aurifel thread. And so I gave you some of that because that's what I love to use. It is 100% cotton, so it does shred a little bit easier. But I just use a smaller amount to it and change my needle often so that I don't get that shredding. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And I think that is it in the kit. Let me set these things here on the side. So if you want to pick out your favorite fabric and get it pressed if you need to. Let me double check that everybody is in here. Looks like we're good so far. Okay, so once you have your fabric ironed and ready to go, take some of your diamond pieces and your glue. And I just like to put a little dot of glue on one side of my pieces. And then we're going to put that on the wrong side of our fabric. Now I just kind of eyeball this, making sure that it's about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. And I like to get done with as much of this as possible. So I'm just going to stack these all next to each other, giving them at least a 1/2 an inch in between each of the blocks so that when we trim these, we have plenty of fabric to be able to baste our pieces with. So once you have that done, you could either be really, really precise and take a ruler and trim away 1/4 of an inch around your entire block if you want to. But this kind of a project is something that you want to be really non-perfectionist about and just have fun and cut them all up really quickly. So what I just like to do is just cut some of my fabric off and then trim them up here. And I'll just rough cut at least 1/4 of an inch around each of the pieces, just like that. So if you're following along with me, just go ahead and baste probably 6 of these on your fabrics. And then we're going to glue baste these. So is anybody following along with me, or are you just going to watch? All right, Tori, awesome. All right, Shelly, you have a question? I think you can.
Yeah, but I can't remember what it was now, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. If I remember, I'll let you know.
Okay, you can leave it in the chat box too, and I'll see that right away too.
Okay.
Okay, so once you've rough cutted some of your pieces, you're going to glue baste these down. Now there's a couple different ways that you can baste English paper piecing projects. There's people who like to thread baste them, and they would just iron over the pieces of fabric and thread baste that. But I'm a little bit lazier than that, and I like to use the glue. So they do make fabric basting glue, and it is really nice. It comes in a smaller tube. It's almost like a pencil size, so that you get a smaller line of glue on your papers. But I found that it's a little bit more expensive, and Elmer's glue is really handy, especially since I have school-age children who has a ton of this glue in our house. So I just like to use this, and I'll just use the very edge of the glue stick here. So I just put a little glue running all the way off of the fabric. Now I don't want the glue to be on this portion of the fabric or right here next to the paper. It's got to be right on the paper itself, okay? And then I just fold the fabric over on it. Now I don't want to stretch the fabric, just want to lay it on top. And then I just like to go all the way around the outside. Some people like to do the opposite sides and then fold the other pieces, but I found just doing it this way is a lot faster and it works just as fine. So it's that easy just to get everything glue basted. I'm going to do another one here. Now, if it's a little bit large here and when you fold it over, you can see there's a ton of fabric, you may want to trim that up just a little bit so that you don't have as much fabric hanging on the sides here. And then I do take the glue and put a little bit on top of that fabric that I just folded over, and then down to the edge here as well, so that I get nice straight lines that are basted all the way around my shape. Okay, so that's how you do glue basting. Now you can do that with all of your shapes. You can do it with the little diamond shapes, be exactly the same way, the hexagon shapes, everything. It's so easy just to do it. Just put a little dab of glue on one side. Make sure you have about 1/4 of an inch around all the sides of your fabric or your piece, and then trim it at least 1/4 of an inch away. If you're brand new to English paper piecing, you may want to do 1/2 an inch or somewhere in between that so that you have enough fabric, because you want at least enough so that you don't have just this little tiny little piece hanging there that may come undone. You want to have enough that's going to stabilize that block. So let me show you a couple examples here real quick. So in your kit, you got a picture here of a tree and a gift and a wreath and the star. So we're going to be making the star, but I did make these two as examples. So let me show you those. This is my little Christmas tree, and I went ahead and finished it by putting 2 of these trees together, right sides together, and stitching all the way around, except for this little teeny tiny portion here that I left open so I could turn it just like you would do a pillowcase. So that one's just a little bit open. And then I stuffed it so you can make kind of a puffy Christmas tree. Doing it this way, though, it was a little bit more challenging because it was harder to turn. It was a little bit harder to put the ribbon in and sew that down. And to turn this little base out was definitely challenging. So if you're new to English paper piecing, you may not want to try this one right away. But if you've played with it before, go ahead and try this. So the other thing with the tree was the example has a hexagon, the entire hexagon. And when I was looking at my hexagon, let me grab one here. It was ginormous looking on my tree. And I thought, that's not going to work. That's going to look really silly. So I went ahead and I cut 1/4 of an inch off of one of my pieces all the way around. So it was a little bit smaller. And then when I stitched that onto my tree, I thought I was going to leave it this way. But then I was thinking, if I just fold it in half, it's going to make that perfect base look to a tree. So I just sewed the other side to my other side of the tree, and it worked out perfectly. So just a little tip for you there with that one. And then my wreath, I finished a little bit differently. So you sew together all the sides like this, and then I sewed another one so I'd have a front and a back. And then I used a decorative stitch on my sewing machine and stitched the outsides together. I did put a little piece of batting in there just to give it a little bit of poof and some stabilization so it would stand up. And then I just hand sewed that little ribbon on. So there's a couple different ways that you can finish your blocks. So then the gift box, I haven't made that one yet, but you would put a diamond this way and a diamond going this way. So it kind of makes a V. And then you could top it with another diamond to make the top. And then if you had maybe a little bow or something, you could add that right there so it made it look more like a gift box than just an odd cube sitting there. So much fun. All right, and then for our star, we're going to be making, mine is going to be a little bit scrappy. You can make it with just one fabric if you want to. And I'm making a double star so that I have a front and a back to this block. So this is kind of how my star is going to look, which is similar to the example, I think. Okay, so now let's get to how we put these together. So you're going to take some thread, depending on which one you want to try. I'm using the Orfel thread. Okay, and then with the Orfel thread, since it's so much thinner than that polyester thread is, I am going to double my thread up, and then I'm going to make a quilter's knot at the bottom. So to do that, you get your pieces together, and then you may need to moisten your finger a little bit. Then you're going to hold it pinched together, wrap it around your finger, and then kind of spin it together and spin it off your pointer finger. I grab it with my middle finger and pull that tight, and that makes that knot. Okay, let me make sure I get everybody in here. We've got Tisha joining us. Awesome. Welcome, Tisha. All right, so I'm going to start with these 2 green pieces. So we're going to put them right sides together. And the paper just makes it so handy because it keeps those shapes stiff for us, so we don't even have to finagle them. Okay, you could use a Wonder Clip or a paper clip or anything else to hold them in place if you need a little bit of help. But since they're small enough, it's not a big deal. Then I'm going to take my needle and put it underneath the fabric in the corner and bring my needle up through the corner here. Now you don't want to sew through your paper. We're just going to sew around the paper. The paper is just to help stabilize our fabric. So I'm going to pull that through. Then I'm going to go to the other side and catch a little bit of fabric here. Let me see if I can zoom you in even more. Yay. These new cameras have been awesome. Ooh, you can get real close. Okay, so it's just going right into the fabric. I'm avoiding going through the paper. So I'm just grabbing a couple pieces. Whoop, now you can't see me. Couple pieces of thread of the fabric and then going straight through the other side. And I'll go back through and do that 2 or 3 times to help secure that stitch on the corner. Okay, and we're doing what's called a whip stitch. Then I'm going to go in the next side, probably about 1/8 or maybe even a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just grabbing a couple threads on top of those papers, not going through the papers. And then I'll go back through. So we're going the same direction, going like a loop. Just taking a little bite out of the fabric at a time. And you want to pull the thread somewhat tight, not too tight that it's kind of warping your fabric, but tight enough that when you open up your pieces, they don't separate. The first English paper piecing project I did, I was not very tight in my stitches. And when I went to long arm it kind of separated that fabric just a little bit to where I had to go back through and hand stitch with an invisible stitch. So you want to make sure you're going through them and pulling them tight. Another tip is that I just learned the other day, and I'm sorry, I wish I knew who had said this, but if you go in at an angle with your thread, instead of going straight through like this, if you kind of go at an angle, it will hide your stitches even more and it makes your stitches a little bit more straight. When you go straight on, it actually will make your stitches kind of go at an angle. Now, if your fingers aren't used to doing this, you may need to use a thimble to help push the needle through. My favorite kind of thimble is actually just a leather patch that is sticky, and you can just stick that right to your finger. And it doesn't come off very easily, so it's really handy because I felt like thimbles always slipped off of my fingers, or I just didn't have them on there correctly, or they were uncomfortable and cumbersome. So doing it this way was a lot easier. Okay, and we're almost here to the end. Once you get to the end, you're going to repeat that stitch 2 to 3 times to help lock it in place. And then with that third loop, before you get it pulled tight, I will put my needle under that loop 2 times to help make that knot and pull it tight. Then I'm just going to hide that thread tail underneath one of the pieces here by threading it through the side and then clip it. There we have two pieces put together. Super cool. All right, any questions so far? You want me to go back over anything real quick? How are we doing? Good? Awesome. Okay, so let's put the next piece on. So the other piece is going to go this way. So this is the only thing you really want to make sure that you get it on the right side, because if you accidentally sew it on this side or you do it this way, you're going to make it a totally different shape than what we want to with the star. So make sure you're putting it on the right side. Those right sides together. You need to make a new knot. So again, we're just going to go around our finger, kind of spin it off and pull tight. Then go underneath the fabric. And then around to the other piece. I'm just taking little tiny chunks as we go, making sure that we're grabbing the fabric on either side of the pieces. So I want to accidentally grab just one side of the fabric, and you'll have a hole in your block. This technique is so much fun to do when you're on the go or you're just relaxing on the couch, watching your favorite show. Or maybe while you're joining one of my classes and you're just sitting there watching. And try not to stab yourself a million times like I do. I sit there on the couch and I'm like, oh, my husband Jay, he's always like, "Did you stab yourself again?" I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm used to it. Everybody getting ready for Christmas? Getting all your shopping done and decorations hung? We seem to go a little bonkers for Christmas still. My kids are 11 and 12 this year. And so they're at that age where they are just loving Christmas and they do most of the decorating themselves. And I've been having them help me address Christmas cards and everything. So I don't even have to work as hard as I used to. It's super nice. And my daughter's getting really into baking too. So I'm hoping that she'll start doing all the baking for me this year. Okay, so when we get to the end, remember do 2 or 3 loops around the same stitch. Then leave your loop open so that you can tie your knot by going through it 2 times and pull tight. And then hide that thread tail underneath. Some layers. Now, when you're doing English paper piecing for like an entire quilt or something, let me grab this other block. So here's that cute piece of our block. I'm working on an grandma's flower garden block, and let me back you up here so you can see a little more. One little click at a time. All right, there we go. So once you are done sewing around all 4 sides of your piece, or all sides, I guess there's 6 here, then you can take that paper out and reuse it because everything's already been sewn, it's stabilized. So you can take it out and reuse it if you want to. You can leave it in though if you need that stabilization, you like a stiffer project. So once I have these 3 sides finished, then I can take that paper out and be able to reuse it again if I have more fabric I need to stabilize. But taking it out is nice because then you can fold it and store it a little bit easier. I have this fun little white box that I store all of my English paper piecing equipment in, and that way I can travel with it, throw it in my car, my purse or something, and be able to work on it wherever I go. So I have several pieces stabilized and ready to go. And I just printed these myself. And then I have several pieces of fabric that still need stabilized. So once I get through some of these pieces, then I'll be able to put the papers on the new one. So it is a really cool thing that you can reuse these papers a lot and save a little bit of money that way. When you're doing more of an awkward pattern, we have some patterns in our shop by Violet Craft, and they are a lot more complicated. And so when you sew around some of them and you're about ready to attach the next piece, you may have to fold your paper in a way that helps you be able to add that next piece on. So if you ever go to try that, let me know and I'll show you some tips and tricks on how to do that as well if you need some more help. But you could bend these papers as much as you need to be able to squish those together and make it easier on yourself. So don't be afraid to bend them when you need to. All right. My stitches, Tori, are about 1/8 of an inch, if not even a little bit closer. Let's see if I can zoom you back in here. Oop, other way. The camera doesn't just fluidly go into zoom. It's like one chunk at a time. Okay, you see that pretty well? They're pretty close together. That just helps them so that when you do any quilting on it, if you're going to do a bigger project, it won't separate on you. So for this star, you're going to do that exact same process with the blocks going the exact same way, and then we'll add it to the bottom of this one. So let me get those stitched out here real quick. Anybody have any questions? Any comments? Let's see, which way do I want these to go? If you would like to unmute yourself, I push the unmute button so you can chat with me now.
I did it.
Yay! Good job. So pretty. And is Tisha your sister? Ooh, I lost you there.
Yeah, she's my sister.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have both of you joining us tonight. Kendra, have you tried English paper piecing before?
No, I've never done it before.
Cool. You have to give it a try.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, since it's glued to the fabric, how do you take the paper out?
Oh yeah, good question. Let me actually just take one out here. So since this middle one is pretty much all stabilized around what I'm going to sew, I'm not going to be sewing anything on this side. I can take that one out now. So you just kind of lift the paper or the fabric off of the paper.
Okay.
It comes off pretty easily.
Okay.
And then just slip it out.
Okay.
Then you can reuse it.
Great.
Yeah. So if there's a couple of different finishing techniques too. So like I was showing you, I put these right sides together and sewed around the outside here, and then I turned it inside out to make the Christmas tree. But I
Yeah.
didn't really love that technique. Making it this way with the wreath where I sewed around the outside with a decorative stitch, that was okay. Probably still not my favorite. I would probably, for ornaments, leave the papers in and then put them right or wrong sides together like this, either tucking in those tails or clipping them a little bit and then tucking them in, and then just glue it down with either hot glue or some kind of glue so that you have a double-sided ornament.
Oh,
And then
okay.
when you glue it, you can take your ribbon and just glue the ribbon inside of that so you have something to hang it with.
Okay.
So yeah. Where I threw my project. Here we go. Once you get the basics down, it's a really simple, easy project to do. And there are so many different kinds of patterns. You can come up with your own patterns. It's so much fun. They make plastic templates that are in these shapes so you can cut out your own. And they actually have a double mirror as well. So the mirror kind of sits like this or something. So you can put your fabric inside of there and fussy cut it so that you have this, whatever design is on your fabric has the same design all the way around. So you can cut all of your pieces out so they kind of match like that. I hope that kind of made sense, but yeah, it's so much fun. So when you're kind of getting through some of these and you've got these tails in your way, I just fold those down out of my way while I'm sewing them.
Okay.
How about you, Shelley? Have you done English paper piecing before?
Yes, I have. But
Great.
you know, I find you can always learn something watching somebody else do it. So
Yeah.
I wanted to see what I can find out.
Yeah,
and I
great.
do use the Wonder Clips to hold my pieces together because my hands get tired.
Yeah, yep. It is helpful. Someday I would like to tackle the La Pasca Guia, I think that's how you say it, quilt. That's English paper piece. It is amazing. It's so complicated looking. You guys will have to try to look on Pinterest or something for that, but it is so beautiful.
What's
Great
it called
time
again?
consuming. La Pasca, I don't know. La Pasca Lia, something. It's very Italian sounding.
Okay. Yeah, I'd never heard of this before, so it's fun to learn something new.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So I have to tell you guys a little bit, but I started a membership program back in July. It is still in its founding member stages of trying to build it, but we are planning on officially opening it January 8th. And this is kind of how it's going to be. We'll have a once a month Zoom call where we're learning a different technique together. You can sew along with me if you want to, or you can just watch. And then all of these videos plus more will be on a website classroom type thing where you can watch them as many times as you would like to. And it's super cool and so much fun. our website has an ability to where after you've watched a video, it will click done or finished on it or something like that. And so that way you kind of know where you're at in your quilting journey. And that's what the membership is called, Your Quilting Journey. It has 5 stages in its core content to help those that are just beginning in their quilting journey, setting up their sewing machine and learning all the tools and any kind of little tricks like that. And then it goes into traditional piecing methods like half square triangle and flying geese and how to do those several different ways. And the 3rd stage, you get to learn how to design your own blocks and all the math that is involved with doing that as well. And then the 4th stage, we go through how to finish your quilt. So free motion quilting techniques and how to baste your quilt, how to bind your quilts, even long arming lessons will be on there if you're interested in learning that. And then the 5th stage is just called the champion stage, which is like, yay, you made a quilt, this is awesome. And then I give you kind of tips on how to display it or hang it or use it, how to take pictures of it, all those fun things. So that opens up January 8th. I'm so excited. I see your question here. Shelley says, is it easier to sew the 2 halves instead of just adding the individual diamonds all the way around? Yes, it is. Because if you just sew them all the way around, you may not get the diamonds to line up in the center exactly correct where you want them to. So I will show you that here next. Get that little flap out of my way. And so you'll be able to kind of feel the needle next to the paper. So you'll be able to kind of tell that you're not sewing through the paper. Ooh, come on. All right, so there's my other half. Now, when I put these 2 together, we want those points to match up. So what I'm going to do is actually putting them right sides together. I'm going to start in the center and work my way out to this side, and then start back in the center and work my way back out to this side. And so that way I know that my points are staying in the middle. If I just started from here and worked my way across, the block may shift just a little bit and then my points would be off. So working from the center out is my advice. Plus the center has all of those little dog ears in our way. So getting past those at the beginning is sometimes easier. So This is where those wonder clips would come in really handy because it could hold this side in place for you while you get this started. Get those dog ears out of your way. Make sure it's lined up correctly. So I just do the exact same thing with all of them. I just go through 2 to 3 times at the beginning and at the end to secure the stitch. Now, what would happen if your thread accidentally broke or it was shredding in the middle of your block? That has happened before. So what I usually do is I'll just break my thread and restart just a little bit further in to help tie those stitches back together in as I go. And it shouldn't come out on you, but if you feel more comfortable, especially if you're still close to the beginning and you just want to start over, that's okay too. But if you're doing a really long strip on a different pattern, you may want to just kind of start a couple stitches back from where you stopped. The only other issue I've had with using Aurifil is that because it's so thin, it tends to like to tie itself into a knot, which can be lovely and frustrating. And so if it does that, I'll just do the exact same thing as if it had shredded on me. Just clip it and tie it off as best I can, and then start back over. And I haven't had any problems with any of my projects coming undone when that happens. Okay, there's one side.
When you do the knots at the end and you go through the loops, do you go through the loops the same direction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So if your loop was like this, you would just go through it from the back both times to make your knot. Get another piece of thread here. Okay, so we went from the center here out. So I'm going to start from the center and go out this way. But I always sew from the right to the left. So I'm just going to flip my block around and go back through this same red piece on this side. If I tried to sew it the opposite way, it would just feel so awkward and weird. And my thread looped around one of those dog ears, so pull that off. Try to tuck those little babies down. Sometimes my thread loops like to hug my entire block, so you have to kind of finagle those sometimes and get them out of the way, back up to where they're supposed to be. I could probably change the view so you can see me better. Oh wow, that's kind of blurry. There we go. Yep, we've got another person here joining us. Now, what I always remind all of my students is that you want to make sure you're still breathing, you're not holding your breath, and relax your shoulders the best you can. Take breaks once in a while and kind of roll those shoulders back, stretch your neck, look up a little bit, because as we get going and we're so engrossed in the project, we tend to shrug our shoulders and hold them really tight, and then we may be holding our breath, and you're going to be really sore if you do that for too long. So make sure you take breaks. Look up once in a while. Hard to do when we get so engrossed in a project. We just want to keep going. It's so much fun. But after having several back surgeries, my body has told me that we can't do that for so long. Welcome to those who just joined us. So we're making the English paper piecing star right now that came in the kit, if you got one of those. And we're almost done with it here. With one side though, but I can go through it again and make the other side if you would like me to start over and show you how to do this. And then those who have been on for a while, they can get off if you need to. So there's the star. Isn't that cute? And look at how perfect the points turned out. They're all pointing at each other, which is exactly what we want. So I'll just do the exact same thing again with the exact same colors and then put them together on their wrong sides. And this one I'm probably going to glue with hot glue or some other kind of glue like, oh, what is that one called? It's some kind of crafting glue. It escapes my mind, but some kind of crafting glue that's going to be strong. And I'll just take a little loop of my ribbon and fold that in half and tuck it inside and then put my next piece on top of there like this, and it'll be hidden and I'll be able to hang it. Isn't that cute? All right, does anyone have any questions? Thanks, Shelley, for joining. I'm going to unmute you if you want to chat. There you go. How's yours coming, Tori? Good.
So in that type of a star, you just leave the papers in then, right? You just glue.
I would for an ornament, yeah, because it'll just keep it stiff that way, so it will hang nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. But like I said, the other one, I took all the papers out for this one when I turned it. And this one, I took all the papers out and put some batting in there.
Okay.
So
That looks really nice.
yeah, it's cute.
Mhm.
You can see the batting a little bit, but it kind of just looks like snow on the outside, so it works.
Yeah.
I love seeing the concentrated faces. We get our lips so tight. All right, well, I'll get back to making the other side here. Grab a drink real quick. My hubby's joining us. We can see you. Hi. All right, let's put these two together first. And when I can help it, I usually start away from these little dog ears when I can help it. Change this view here. You'll also notice that your needle will start getting curved as you're using it because you're pressing on it. You can kind of see how I'm holding mine. My thumb is pressing in the center, and so it'll eventually start curling, which is fine. It still works exactly the same. If you start feeling like you're really having to push that needle through the fabric, it might be starting to get dull and you'll want to get a new needle. But I don't change my needles out very often, so they last a pretty long time. I can usually tell because the next day my hands and my wrist are really sore. And so I'm like, oh, I probably was pushing a little too hard. And hiding your thread tails doesn't have to look pretty or very precise. Like this one, you can see I kind of took a couple chunks, and you're never going to see that because it's on the back. It just kind of helps hold that tail in place. So if you clipped it right at the end, you might be a little too close to that knot, and then it may eventually start coming undone. So having a little bit of a thread tail can help you so that you don't lose those stitches. And I need a new piece of thread.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to go, Rachel.
All right. Thanks for
So
joining us tonight.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much. I
Have
learned a
good
lot.
night. Thanks.
Yeah,
Good.
you too.
All right.
Okay.
Talk to you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Bye.
So another fun little tip I have is so that you don't lose your needle while you're on the couch or anything. They make needle minders that are magnetic. And these ones that I have in here, let me see if I can, are from my friend Bev McCullough at Flamingo Toes. And they're so adorable. Look at those cute things. And so it has a magnet on the back that you can either attach to your block itself or maybe to your shirt. And then you can just clip your needles right on there so you don't lose them. Super handy. All right, let's put this other side on. Making sure it's going in the right direction. I need to tie a knot in my thread first. If you have any questions or anything, you can leave those in the comment box or just unmute yourself, and I'd love to chat with you. Grabbed my thread tail there.
How did you say you hide the dog tails?
When we're going to put them together, probably just either fold them under and kind of put a drop of glue on there. You could probably use just a little bit of your Elmer's glue or your basting glue and just flop them over like that. You may need to trim them depending on how long they are. That worked. Now you just have all those pretty points. little while ago, I asked the students that were here if they have ever English paper pieced. So I think um, Tisha and Tracy, you joined in a little bit after that. So have you guys ever tried English paper piecing? You can leave the comment in the box if you want to, or you can unmute yourself and chat if you want. Almost
I,
done this side.
um, are you still able to get kits?
Say that again.
Are the kits still available to get?
Yes. Yeah. So if you just go to our website at journeybackquilts.com, in the Christmas section under shop,
Mhm.
you'll be able to see them there.
I bought a kit a long time ago, but I never actually did it. So,
Okay.
and I don't know. I don't think I got it through Journey Backs. I got it through a quilt company.
Sure.
Yeah, but it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. It's very relaxing when you get into it. So I was actually at my mother-in-law's house in another town, 4 hours away from home. And we don't have a Joann's in our town, but she did. And so I was like, let's go shopping, honey. And so we went there, and I'm like, I really want to try this English paper piecing thing. I have no idea how to do it. But I'm going to buy everything that I think I need and try it out. And so I figured it out, and it gave me something to work on while we were visiting her for whatever holiday it was, Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or something. And yeah, it was so much fun. I didn't even know a pattern to do. I just bought a whole bunch of diamonds, and then I started putting them together in a star like this. And then I wasn't sure how to connect them. So I had to figure out my own hexagon paper and connect them that way. And it turned out really cool.
I like the fact that you can do it just about anywhere.
Yes. Yeah, I have found that I like to stay busy and my hands need something to do. So this gives me that thing to do while I'm watching a movie or waiting for my kids at their events. I've even done it at church a little bit while if we're sitting in the back row and I'm not distracting anyone. Just helps me concentrate even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once you get the basics down, there's so many different patterns that you can play with. We have a couple on our website as well that are written by Violet Craft, and they are amazing. She has a peacock, a barn owl, a rooster, and a lion. And they are so much fun to put together. They're a little bit more challenging and definitely more advanced, but once you know the technique, you can usually figure it out.
That would be neat. You wouldn't even have to do it like around Christmas time. It could be gifts for any time.
Yeah, exactly. This is just a good way to get started if you're brand new to English paper piecing.
Yeah.
Because if they don't turn out beautiful, you can just scrap them. So Tori and I actually took a class together from our mentor, Shannon Brinkley. And one of her favorite sayings is just, if it's not bringing you joy anymore, and talking about all your UFOs, if you don't want to finish them, you don't have to finish them.
Mhm.
That they're just something that taught you how to do that technique. And if you don't love it anymore, you don't have to finish it. That's really given me a lot of freedom to say goodbye to some of my UFOs, because I definitely have a pile of them. Okay, last piece to this one.
Will we be able to go watch this later?
Well, I was contemplating that, honestly. I could probably make it available on YouTube, but it definitely will be going on to my membership website. So if you are a member of Your Quilting Journey, you'll have access to this video and all the other videos that we've done in the
I
past.
have the library and the Scrappy applique.
Uh-huh.
That's right. Yeah, I have that.
Okay.
So would it be available to that library or what?
No, that one is under Shannon Brinkley.
Okay,
This one is under Journey Back Quilts.
gotcha.
It's the same kind of idea, though. Shannon Brinkley and I use the same platform for our websites, so. But because my membership is not open officially until January 8th, if you want a replay of this, let me know and I'll get you the replay on a YouTube link.
Okay. Did you show earlier on how to take the paper pieces out? I know
Yes.
here leaving them in, but
Yeah, so for this one, we are leaving them in, but once you have sewn all the way around your piece normally, you would want to keep the paper in until you had all your pieces around that. And then you just lift the fabric up a little bit and it comes right off.
gotcha.
So it's not difficult at all. And my thread is getting a little short, so I'm going to tie it off right here. Unfortunately, so I've got like 1/4 of an inch left.
Are you just using regular cotton thread?
I am using Aurifil for this just because that's what I like to use. Most English paper piecers prefer using a polyester thread. The one that I have in the kit, though, I actually found on Amazon because they were the ones who could get me supplies the fastest right now. And it wasn't what I was expecting. It was a little bit thicker and not what I would like to use for a project like this. So I usually use Aurifil on all of my English paper piecing, and I just double it up. Using cotton thread can shred if it's passing next to the papers too often. It'll eventually shred the thread. So I try to grab the fabric a little bit above the papers so I'm not running right next to that paper.
Gotcha.
And the needle I'm using is a Milner's size 10 needle. It's a really thin straw type needle, which is helpful to make those teeny tiny stitches. But if you're brand new to English paper piecing, using a thicker needle, like in the kit, I give you an embroidery needle as well, so you can practice with that first. I didn't use the Milner's needle on my first project, and it turned out just fine. So once you get practice, then you can try those Milner's needles. They make the stitches even smaller, which is super handy. Okay, we're at the end now. I can put these two pieces together. So yes, at the beginning of the video, I show you how to make that quilter's knot. You're just going to put it around your finger. You may need to moisten it a little bit. Then you twirl it in between your thumb and finger and then spin it off. Taking your middle finger, you just pull it tight, and that gives you a little knot there. And then these are going to go together like this. So I'm going to put them right sides together. Then I'm going to start from the center and work my way out to the outside on both pieces. That way the points stay centered in the middle. Using a wonder clip or a paper clip or binder clip, anything like that to kind of help hold these pieces together can be helpful as you're trying to maneuver around all of those dog ears. And then the first stitch I make, I do 2 to 3 loops in the same spot to help hold it in place. And then I go in sideways to cross the threads, going sideways. If you go straight up and down, your stitches will actually be sideways. If you go sideways, your stitches will be a little bit more straight, which will hide those stitches a little bit more.
Interesting.
And my loop just keeps wanting to hug my blocks. I've heard of some thread, I think it's a thread wax or something that you can run your thread through that will help it not to shred. So if you like to use a cotton thread, but you're having a lot of problems with it shredding or breaking on you, you might want to try that wax. I haven't ever tried it myself, but I haven't had an issue with it yet. So and I just take about between an 1/8 and a 1/16 of an inch seam allowance between each stitch. So it's pretty tiny. I found that I make my stitches wider than that when I go do the quilting on a normal size quilt. It will separate those stitches and I'll have to go back in and stitch it back down with an invisible stitch, which is a little bit harder to do once you've done all the quilting. Okay, and then on the last stitch, I'm going to go through that 2 or 3 times, and then on the last run, we'll make the knot by keeping a little bit of a loop, going through that loop 2 times, the same direction, and then pull it tight, and then hide the thread tail underneath one of the little flaps. All right, then I'm going to turn the block over because I need to do this side still, but I like to work from the right to the left because I'm right-handed. If I try to do it the other way, it would just feel weird and awkward and probably not look as well. And after a lot of practice, you may get really good at threading your needle, but at the beginning, you might want to use one of these handy little needle threader things, or they make a stationary one. It's kind of bulky looking, and you put your needle in the top, and then you thread your thread over it like this, and then you push a little lever, and it like springs the thread into it. So I have a few friends that's worked well for them, and others have said that didn't work at all. So we'll just have to play with what will work for you.
I just got a new sewing machine, so I don't even on it. It's got an automatic needle threader, and I'm loving it because I can't see
Yes,
the
that's
needles
awesome.
anymore.
What kind of machine is it?
It's a Brother Innovis,
Uh-huh.
the 2450.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I've had it maybe about a month now.
Sweet. We use the little cheapy Brother machines in my classroom, and they're the best machines ever. It's what I pretty much learned how to quilt on, and it's a great machine. They still run and last forever.
Yep. I'm loving the different stitches this has, and
Uh-huh.
I just used the walking foot for the first time today to fix the binding on a friend's quilt.
Huh?
Fixing the binding, like their dog chewed up the binding of
Oh
her quilt.
no.
Yeah, so I used to put a new binding on the one end of it and use the walking foot on it. So that was
Good.
interesting.
Yeah.
I was proud I figured out how to put it on there.
Uh-huh. Yep, I love using the walking foot for binding t-shirt quilts, doing some of the quilting on top too. Oh, sorry, you guys can't see me anymore. There we go. And we're gonna do a live Facebook on using a walking foot in the next couple weeks. So
Oh, I'll
next
be looking for it.
Wednesday night, I believe, is our live fabric sale on Facebook. And then the following, I believe, is one of those free motion quilting lessons. So it's either the walking foot or free motion stuff. I can't remember which is which. And then the next week will be the other one. So much fun.
Yeah, definitely interested in that. I
Yeah.
haven't done any of my own quilting, but I'm excited to start trying.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's a little challenging to do a large quilt on a domestic sewing machine, but doing wall hangings or baby quilts or something smaller is so much fun. And then our next free class that we're going to do on Zoom like this is on January 8th, which is a Friday. And we're going to make the disappearing 9-patch quilt together.
Interesting.
It's a very easy, beginner-friendly block to do. but it goes really quickly. So if you need to knock out a quilt really quick for a gift or a baby present or something, it is one to definitely try. And you can use pre-cut fabric, which is nice because then you don't have to worry about the cutting part too.
Yeah, I like pre-cut.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
like kits. I don't like to pick out my own fabric.
Yep, I know. It's difficult sometimes. So I'm just gluing all these little dog ears down that are on the points. And I forgot to grab my hot glue gun, but I would probably hot glue this all down together. I'm going to put this paper back in. So there's lots of different ways you could finish these ornaments if you want to, but the easiest way is just going to be making them like this and then gluing them together like that. So I'm not sure if this Elmer's glue would be strong enough, but let's see how well it holds for a minute. Maybe if I put a lot on there. Then where'd my little ribbon go? So you could do it like that and then do a whip stitch around the outside with maybe a contrasting thread or a variegated thread. And that would be even more interesting and pretty and hold it together for sure. So lots of different ways that you can finish this quilt block. But there's the little star.
Pretty.
Yeah, it looks like you're the only one left. Thanks for joining me.
Cool. I'm glad you stayed and finished.
Yeah,
Late.
yeah, not a problem. I expected this class to go a couple hours, so an hour and a half is not bad at all.
Yeah, I watched your color wheel. Was that yesterday you did that?
Wasn't me, it might have been Shannon.
Oh, okay. Maybe
Yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
was.
she is so good at the color wheel and
Yeah.
matching up all those colors and yeah, so much fun.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to get all that.
Yeah, I know. Takes some practice and playing with it for a little while and stuff, but yeah.
All right. Well, thank
All right.
you.
So yeah, thank you. Have a great night. And if you do this, let me know. I would love to see it.
Okay.
All righty. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.